you can sit anywhere. I showered this morning. Yeah, we're kind of informal. You just come, take a little seat and stay around. We had a very nice talk with the. We kind of split everybody up because there were a couple. I was explaining what happened before Herbert and Ella May and Charles Crick sick. I originally split everybody up because the panel would have been huge. But this works out really well too because we had four of the original producers with us, so we told stories from the late image days through the making of the film. And then now we have, the people in the film, so we get a couple different perspectives on everything here. So.
You have the ladies.
Yeah. It's the ladies of the Living Dead. Hello there. All right, we all settle in. We're all good. We're all sitting here. Okay, well, I would like to, because we have a lady of the Living Dead here, maybe we'll go down a little row, start with a different perspective of how everybody got involved in the film. I know Kyra's sitting next to me. The film was originally scheduled, in the script, it had a little boy, and they went, whoa, no one's got a kid. So poor Kyra got sucked into it because her father is Carl,
Wait, let her tell them.
And yeah, I was gonna say, I just wanted to say, like, did Dad come and say, hey, you're in this movie?
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I guess there was a boy shortage that year or something, I don't know, but I was drafted to be Karen and not Timmy. And this was in the days before sex change operations. So.
And the best thing about it was we got to roll her up in a carpet to pretend that she was the dead lady at the top of the stairs.
Yeah, she wound up doubling for the dead body, yeah.
We had to drag
That's what I do best.
It's like, other than your famous lines, you were like, hey, let's put a mannequin in here. Too stiff. Let's roll up Kyra. Good. She's young. She don't care if we drop her.
That's pretty much it. And I don't know how poor Dwayne did it because I was 8 feet tall at that time too. So.
And where Judith O'Day, you were one of only two, I will say, professional actors. You and Dwayne Jones. Everyone else was kind of, a lot of people had acting experience, but you were two. How did you go about it? Did they have a regular casting?
What happened was, who you know really does make a difference at times in this business. I started in musical theater in Pittsburgh when I was 15 years old. From there, I opened up into television, did variety shows, commercial work. I happened to do a lot of commercial work with Kyra's father, Harry Cooper. Carl Hardman. He had a wonderful recording studio, Hardman Associates, down in Pittsburgh. Carl and I had a great time together. Carl and Marilyn and Chuck Craig was there as well. Then I decided to head off to Hollywood to make it big in film. I was there barely a year when Carl called and said, hey, we've got a theater, we're gonna have a show, you wanna come back and audition? I thought that would be wonderful. I said, sure. Got on an airplane, came back home to Pittsburgh, auditioned. I was very fortunate to get the part. I was very lucky because the beautiful woman here to my right beside the beautiful woman directly to my right, she had that wonderful Bridget Bardot, just gorgeous look. And I know they wanted Jude to play Barbara, but they sort of settled for me. Now, I don't know if that was because I had done just a little bit more theater and had a little more professional experience than Jude, but we both ended up doing our respective roles. That's how I got the part.
Now, Paula, did you answer a casting or anything, or did you like? I know some people just simply said, "Hey, there's a film crew close by," and they wound up in it. How did you wind up in it?
I was the receptionist at the recording studio for Carl Hardman, and I replaced Judy. She was there, and I had just worked a couple months. spend the night every city. But it was fun, and I loved it, and I was 19, and I didn't have anything else to do, so.
As Paula mentioned, Judy, next, you were originally the receptionist for Hartman and Associates. And were you the receptionist there when you were cast? Because did you have any acting experience? Because I must say you were natural, you were wonderful. So did they just say, wow, you look great on camera and man, you really can act? So.
That was a lot of questions.
Well, it's kind of rolled into one little group. Were you the original receptionist? Did you act in it, or did they just say, man, we need you, you look good on camera?
Let me just preface this by saying I did caricatures of everyone at Cardinal Associates. I was an art student, and someone met me at the bus stop one day and said, "Are you an art student?" I said, "Yes." And they asked me to go and meet Colin Maryland. I did all their caricatures while I was still in school. And then when I graduated, they asked me to come on board. So that's how I came to work for Colin Maryland. And I was there for about 2 years. There really wasn't any problem. It was strictly tyrants, that sort of thing. And so Russ would come to Hardman Associates frequently for research to record, not he himself, but he would have talent there to research radio commercials. And so that's how I met Russ. And then I had already left Hardman Associates and had gone to Marvel for Lincoln when the film was being cast. And yes, I did read the part. I was absolutely terrified. And everyone agreed that I was absolutely terrified. And I really think that they created the role of Judy because it wasn't that much of a stretch. And so that's how I got to it.
Well, what did the actual auditions themselves look like? The actual audition itself, what did it consist of? Either or both, either.
When I did it, it was in the room adjacent to the general greeting area at the village. And I remember I was doing a scene in her stage. And I remember kind of curling up into a ball on the sofa. I didn't have very much to say, so I was just so traumatized by what had happened. And they tried so hard to walk me through it and all the feelings that I had. They were just so genuinely generous with me, but it was just.
To be honest with you, I have no recollection of what that audition was like. I must have been so excited to have the opportunity to audition that I have no idea. Does anybody know? I have no idea. We should have Russell.
I know from talking that some people just did not mention. They were like, man, we need you, you're here. Now, both of you read the script for the role of Barbara. Was Barbara, did it change? Like, in the original script, was she a stronger character? Did she have more lines? Because, like, when you got a hold of it, like the guys admit, you sort of made it your own.
Really?
So was it written that way, or did you just, did they say, oh, go with it because it's working?
Jack Russo said there was a complete script with Barbara and all in it. I never had the luxury of reading a full script. I believe you're right in that Barbara's character really evolved as we shot. As George saw things happening in those scenes, he allowed me to do things that possibly might not have been as included in the script as it was initially. But in my mind, Barbara evolved as the filming progressed.
George absolutely loved those natural moments, those moments when you almost weren't ready to film. Something happened to the characters, and it was so real. That's what he was looking for, something very real.
A lot of people describe him as a non-director because they'll let the camera roll, and then somewhere in that film take, he'll find what he needs. He lets you do your thing.
Also, exactly, he let you do your thing. George would tell you, this is the scene we're going to do. Here's the physical movement we'd like to involve. Here are the, if you had lines, then those are the lines we do. Or he would say, these are the points I want you to make. A lot of that dialogue, for me, was improvisation, especially the scene where Barbara tells Ben what happened to her and her brother in the cemetery. George was not a micromanaging director. He would tell you what he wanted and he would allow you to achieve it as best you could.
Art, you got anything?
So Kyra was child actor. What was growing up Night of the Living Dead like? I mean, you were there from a young age. What was that like?
You mean after the film? It was a little bit uncomfortable for me. I didn't like being the center of attention at all. I would be much happier sitting in a corner, like disappearing. And it did bring some attention, and any attention was sort of not really, very welcome. So, I mean, I'm sure people have heard this story, this jag-off. Is Tim Gross in the movie? But this guy who lived in my neighborhood.
You call him a jag-off, you proudly hop up, too.
No, I'm not calling Tim a jag-off. I'm just saying, because
Well, if he would
totally
think you
understand
did,
the
he'd hop
reference.
up
So-
proudly. So.
this kid that I was a young kid, and this slightly older kid in my neighborhood walked past my house, sort of taunting me. And it was the first time I'd ever heard the word zombie used in reference to that character. And so he would, like, anytime he would walk past my house to or from school or whatever, I would hear him go, zombie, like, what, really, get a life, So it was just kind of creepy because it wasn't like, hey, that was really cool that you did this thing. It was like, I don't know, it just wasn't comfortable. So, and then when I was about 15 or 16, the Pittsburgh Playhouse was showing, they had older films and art films and things. And they were showing Night of the Living Dead one night. So I went with some girlfriends of mine. And after the movie, my friend Barbara actually said to some guy that was out in the lobby, hey, she was in that movie. And he goes, yeah, what'd you dream the next night? So it was like, well, I'm damned if I do, damned if I can't own it, and I can't, like, sort of disown it. So I was in this kind of weird, like, limbo. I didn't feel particularly proud of it, but I didn't hate it either. So it wasn't really until I did my first convention in, I guess, 1988 in Monroeville that I sort of understood, like, hey, I'm not a pariah, and I'm people do appreciate this movie, and it was, I started sort of owning it then, and this helped me. You guys helped me kind of process what it was. I was like, hey, this is actually kind of cool. Like, maybe I can actually embrace this. So, but it took a long time. I mean, it took 20 years, really.
I thought it was funny because, correct me if I'm wrong, for your very first appearance, but we met at a weird Three Stooges festival. Was that?
That's BatCon. That was the Akron Bat.
Whatever it was, we first met.
That was my very first one.
Okay, well, because that's where we first met, and of course, I was like, "Oh, it's cool to meet you," and you're like, and I'm just like, well, I mean, you signed my stuff, we chatted along. Now, we know each other very well for a number of years, but it was just sort of like, oh, cool, now the first person I ever met from this film. I don't even know why I'm here.
Yeah, no, it was weird. It took a little bit of time because I was still in that, like, I wanted to hide thing, It's like, wow, this is so cool. I'm like, okay.
From that day on to the first time
Ken brought me out of my shell.
Yeah, she's been Kyra's been a friend for years and a regular here every October since forever. Your dad and Marilyn were here several times.
Yeah, a couple times.
They were semi-regular, so yeah, it was. But anyway, that's needless. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, but it was just an odd. It took decades to process, but that's sort of me, not necessarily the situation. It takes me a while to process things. And it's like first I think, wow, that was fun, and then I go, no, maybe not fun. Is this fun? Okay, that really
But now,
sucked.
Xanax does wonders.
But now, I love it. No, I do. Now I just feel.
You learn to embrace it.
It's beyond that. Now I realize really how lucky.
The oddest part is the way things have gone. And like I started watching horror movies at a very young age. The age you are now, there are like 1 million kids that would want to be in a horror movie right now. I want to be that. So it's just odd how, just socially how weird it is. Because I was a baby boomer, grew up on black and white TV films like you did. And then you wound up in the last of the great black and white films.
Yeah, that's really lucky.
Now we were talking about improving before too, and we can talk about bring back to a kind of a funny story with Miss Judith O'Day. But like, did they tell you like when you like at the beginning like when you're running toward the farmhouse near the beginning like you almost knocked over you come to the gas pump and you almost knock it over. Like, do they say, hey, it's not bolted down or anything? Because it's a great recovery. If you watch it, it wiggles a little and you do your thing. But
And it cuts very quickly
yeah.
to the next scene. Yeah, I've always been rather enthusiastic in my life. I have a lot of energy. They said, run into that gas pump. I ran, held them for election, bashed right into it. We did not realize that it had not been strongly bolted to the ground. Therefore, it began to fall. Where was it aimed? Right toward George Romero, who was on the ground, shooting up like this. If you watch that scene, you will see a very quick cut, because we had to save George from being squished by that gas pump.
We had talked about it before, and it was shot on 35. There's a lot of misconception that it was shot on 16, and it wasn't. But Late Image only had one camera, so they're like, ooh, gas pump. So yeah, you got to roll them out of the way because if you destroy the camera, that ends the movie right there. So. But it's funny because if you notice it wiggles and blammo. But yeah, it's like we were talking earlier. Like it's like you use what you can get to get the best out of your people, but you improvise and roll with them. So.
You think of film today where actors will say, well, we had 150 takes on that scene, I was exhausted. We did not have the luxury of a budget that allowed you to just shoot film. Our stock was very precious, it was limited. Therefore, I would say when we did shoot scenes, at the most, we would shoot 2. If we were lucky, maybe 3. I don't believe that we shot much more than that. We tried our best to get what George wanted within that first, certainly the second take. That's independent film for you. You don't have that luxury.
And we talked also in the other film that they only used 400-foot reels, which usually a camera's 1,000-foot. So you got to get it quick because you only get so much time, and that was just because of the way that the camera itself was 400 foot. So it's like get in all the dialogue again because we want to cut it in the middle, and so you just it's not problems in a low budget film like this. It's solutions to the problems. And most of the film that was shot was used. There's not a lot of outtakes or anything. But one of the saddest parts, going to Paula, was one of the saddest parts for me is, and pictures exist, she probably has them on her table, but one of the George's favorite scene was the zombies coming over the horizon scene that was supposed to play on TV, and you're pretty much the lead zombie in it, right there. And then the distributor or somebody decided to just go back to the scene with the zombies eating people after the truck blew up. But like that scene is like one that I'd really love to see it back. But what do you think, Paul, about that nice lead zombie scene is, people ever ask you where that scene actually is, like when they see a picture?
No.
Well, I did. I knew where it was. It just wound up in a cutting room. So I thought it kind of stunk because it's such a cool scene. And George over the years has said, that's my favorite scene. The zombies coming over the hill and the horizon.
Did they put it back in
I
when they
don't.
redid it?
No, I don't know. It would be nice if they did, but they actually reused the scene with right after the trucks blow up and, you know, the feast scene, the Last Supper scene, they call it. They put that back in there. So,
I don't know. Did you folks know that the Museum of Modern Art had just taken the film, put an exhibit in the museum, and then redid the film? And I guess it's absolutely beautiful. It's redigitized and the audio's redone. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm anxious to.
now, Judy Ridley, we have two Judy. Who ever thought that? But we were talking about the what they call Last Supper scene with the truck and everything. Was I mean, did you find that, like, you know, on a movie like this, it was like, you know, you gotta go out there, and I knew, like, they had the truck, they said blow it up, but not too big, then they had to re-blow it up. Any remembrances from that scene, since it's such a memorable one?
Well, when it was actually, I was sitting along with this great table. I was sitting along with many others. It was just wonderful. Just enjoying it thoroughly. The night that I was doing my lines, it was after midnight, and there were a few takes. And I know that because of all the lights, we were drawing a lot of insects. So they were flying in and out of my mouth, which, you know, you have to disregard those takes. And I remember, this is just absolutely pathetic, but you have to understand that I was not an actress. And I was doing this, flying by the seat of my pants. George said, oh, I had my line. I can't, my jacket's gone. And George said, hey, Judy, say, I can't, my jacket's gone. I can't. So I said, I can't, my jacket's gone. And there was about a 5-second delay, and then everyone roared, you know. Those are my vivid recollections.
That's awesome. Good. There's been a lot said about the farmhouse. I don't think anybody liked the farmhouse. I mean, it was in bad condition, full of bees, hornets, bugs. You know, during the shooting, you just kind of go, anyone can grab this thing, but just go, oh, yeah. You know, was that like
Water. We all had to go to the creek and fill a bucket with water, carry it up to the bathroom, fill the tank in the toilet in order to flush. We all had to do that.
Anyone else have the farmhouse always seems to be like, oh man, you know, it hadn't been lived in for years.
I liked it.
I did too, in that it created such an atmosphere. It was cold, it was dank, it was literally, I thought it was perfect. Just like it was perfect for what we were doing.
Art, you got anything to say?
Well, I would love to. Yeah, I would love to hear any Dwayne Jones references.
Dwayne, I love you and I wish you were here to combat this, but you're not. Dwayne, very intelligent, erudite fellow. When he was not being shot on film, he was reading a book and smoking. He and Carl just smoked up a storm. Do you remember that? Your dad smoked up a storm.
Well, it's hard to quit smoking while you're watching that movie. You can't watch that movie while you're trying to quit smoking because everybody's smoking.
That's true. Marilyn smoked, Carl smoked, but Dwayne and especially Dwayne and Carl would get together. They had a wonderful, wonderful friendship. You all, I believe many of you know that Dwayne got the part of Ben because he was the absolute best to audition. The part wasn't written for a black man or a white person. It was just written as Ben. That's one of the things that means so much to me about this film. in that George and other decision makers knew that Dwayne was the best. His color made no difference whatsoever. It made no difference in the actual storyline of the script. And in 1968, that was amazing. It truly was a gift that I think Night of the Living Dead gave the world at that time.
It was funny because it's come up before where people want to see something into it, and like Richie's, cousin or brother, Rudy was reading for Ben too, and and then when Dwayne read for it, they said, "Well, I'm sorry, he's just the better actor." It had nothing to do with anything other than the fact that he was going to make a better Ben. So everyone just wanted to make the best movie they could, and then everybody said, "Oh, it's the '60s and this and that." It's like, really? We just did the best we could. So
But the one thing Dwayne had trouble with was hammering nails. Remember the scene where boarding up the house? Well, it was tough for Dwayne to come down with that hammer and actually hit the nail on the head. What we had to do was drive the nails almost in. So the dust out a little bit, and then he just whacked the heck out of that thing. But yeah, he had a tough time. Had you given me that hammer, I could have built you a house.
which would have looked really bad if you went out and hammered it for him. So I've hit a lot of the points. I just wanted to hit a few so everyone had a chance to talk. But if anyone in the audience has questions for any of the panel, feel free to ask it. Go ahead.
I have a question. In the late 80s, they did a parody of Night of the Living Dead. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it. There's something called like Night of the Dawn of the Sun.
Well, it's actually Night of the Day of the Dawn of the Sun of the
Yes.
Return of the... It's actually Night of the Living Dead, because Night of the Living Dead, by a simple point of forgetting to put a copyright on Night of the Living Dead, it fell into a public domain, and somebody took Night of the Living Dead and wiped out the entire soundtrack and just redubbed over it. So
And I wanted
it
to
was
know.
a couple guys from Jersey.
I wanted to know if anyone in the cast has actually seen that movie and what their thoughts were on it.
No, I haven't. Have you seen it?
I've heard of it, I haven't seen it.
If you ever want it, I'll send you a copy.
I'd love to see it. Has anybody else seen it? What did you think?
It's stupid. Yeah, it's kind of goofy. You know what a better parody was? The little short film Night of the Living Bread. I couldn't for the life of me find mine, and I wanted to screen it this weekend, and it's amazingly funny. Unlike Night of the Day of the Dawn of the Sun of the Return of the... It's got the world's long... Actually, that parody that you're talking about, it goes down in history as the longest film title in history. It's like 50, 60 words long. Anyone else? Go ahead.
You mentioned the evolution of Barbara. Can you go into more specifics as far as what attributes sort of altered from again what you did read of the script and what ultimately happened in George's tweets as they came out?
Well, I would love it if George were here, because I'd love a back and forth with him about it. I think he wasn't quite sure if about the dialogue. Should he have more dialogue for Barbara? And if he did, would the actress doing it, be able to carry that? And not being sure about it, he took the safe side of the catatonia role. But as we went on, I'd like to think that George saw in the nonverbal response that Barbara was giving that maybe that was working better than dialogue, and that her going inside herself made great sense. I think that's why I wish he were here to tell me if that was what he was thinking. But as an actress doing it, all I was told was, you have no dialogue for this scene. but this is the emotion that needs to be conveyed. That's why, to me, this was one of the biggest challenges I had faced to that point in my career. My career was primarily in musical theater and comedy roles, but to have that challenge to convey that kind of terror was so thrilling for me. No, I think the highest compliment I am ever paid in any of these conventions is someone coming up and saying, I so believed you were terrified. That's the best compliment in the world.
Sometimes less is more, and
Yeah.
you really did look shocked in the stage you were in.
When you had to face Bill Heinzman running at you with a rock, Bill was, to me, he's number one zombie. He'll always be number one because he was relentless. And I think that's what a ghoul or a zombie is. They don't think, they just go for what they need, and they'll do anything to get it. It made it very easy to play
Bill
against
was
him.
always a Wasteland favorite. He was a friend. I got to know him and his family very well. And I would like to point out that, honestly, if you look, your 3-day badge and all guest badges pay homage to my friend Bill Heinzman. Actually, he was always
In costume.
in costume. He was the only guy I know that after they did the little stage play, you know, and he had to get a suit and everything, he would walk around just taking pictures with fans, and he adored it, and he loved Wasteland, and he loved all of you if you've met him here, but I did honestly pay homage to my friend Bill on those days. But that's just me being a little mushy, I'm sorry. But anyone else have a question? Dan?
I don't know if you touched upon the music score at all. I know I didn't get a chance to talk at the other, but I think the music score is so underrated. It's such an integral part of the storyline. I'm quite concerned with the overall movie. Like you're seeing as Barbara, when I talked to you on one-on-one at your table about the scene where you were like, this come out, that's one or more into it. You're by the jukebox, and you open up the jukebox, and you hear that music, that you're foreboding music, and you really register.
I wish I could, but because we had none of that as we were doing the scenes, I was not familiar with any of the music.
It's all library music, and I'll pay for part of
Yeah,
the citizen, it's library.
yeah, and I didn't know until I actually was at the premiere and saw the film.
Here, I mean, what kind of effect did it have?
Oh, I think music is so into the emotion of the film. I think it worked tremendously.
I think there's timeless scores. Like, I don't like when you put, like, you know, just like, would the movie be the same if they threw a rap over the end credits? No, of course not. And I think that filmmakers today sometimes don't look at that as what's it going to look like 30, 40, 50 years from now. Is it really going to be dated? And even though the score in that was basic library music, that, you know, it was chosen well and chosen for the scenes, and it stands up, even though you'll hear it in other things. You know? If you listen close, if you know what, you know, the library of music they had to work with. So I don't think everyone agrees. Anyone else? Oh, God, it's like a song. I got a wrap up, but I don't know. Go ahead.
How do you expect that everybody involved pretty much knew each other beforehand in some way or another? Are there any stories from like just you guys joking around between the scenes?
I remember telling a story today. We had, as you recall, we had a nude in the movie. That was unheard of, seeing a nude. When she came on set, she was actually a model and worked for Art, I believe, Art Institute. She was called on set, and the call went out, does anybody want to help put makeup on the nude girl? We need help. I've never seen so many. I didn't know we had that many men. I can do that.
Well, I ended up doing the backside, and Carl ended up doing the front side. And at 19, I wasn't real comfortable, but I did it.
As far as it goes, we talk about everybody pitching in, and so other than actor, what would be like? We just talked about this now. Are there any other stand-up jobs you did where it's like, oh man, I gotta fetch water again. I gotta do this. Anything come to mind for anybody?
One of the investors in this show was a meat packer, and I remember one day he brought in a box, just a big brown box, and he opened it up, and inside were the sanitized and folded intestines, and it was just a whole big box of it. And then I remember Vince Serbinsky taking a soda bottle with water and turning it upside down on these intestines to fill them with water so they were now round instead of flat. And there is the scene after my death where one of the moves is actually balancing these disgusting things, and it was because of the water that goes into it. Yeah, I mean, that stands on as one of my recollections. It was so unbelievable. There were intestines.
And in the shot where someone's eating someone's arm, they're pulling the sleeve cutting off the arm. It was my arm. And I was laying on the ground, and George had the camera on my chest. And this guy was pulling the stuff off, and I was giggling. And he yelled at me and said, "Paula, stop it. I'm moving the camera." That's mine with the interviews.
We mentioned earlier that we had limited amount of 35mm stock. Being out of a studio and in a location site, we had to load the cartridges, the cassettes.
They're little reels.
Right, but you had to do it in a dark bag, a black bag. George taught me how to do that. We sat down in that house that was so cold. He showed me how. You couldn't, and if you didn't get it right, we could lose that stuff.
With the film writer, the off one side, you had to load the camera.
Right. I thought that was extremely exciting. Of course, wanting to be in front of the camera and be an actress, but also to learn one of many, many things that go on back or behind the camera. And to be able to participate in that it made you feel even more a part of this very tight-knit community.
What about you, Kyra? Other than being rolled in the carpet, were you mischievous on the set, or were you just like, yep, shy little girl, just call me?
Nope. I would not have been allowed to be like mischievous. No way. My dad told me before I started filming my stuff, he said, "Now remember," he said, "try not to make any mistakes. Time is money." Oh my God, this is not going to be fun. And
Why did my dad have to be an investor?
It was scary to me because I was really terrified of making a mistake. And when we were doing that scene, where in the basement where I was lying on the table and my dad and Marilyn were yapping at each other, I hate living with you and all that stuff, Well, that scene actually went on for about 20 minutes and it was cut. And they kept making mistake after mistake after mistake and having to redo and redo. And I thought, you're worried about me making a mistake. Okay,
Poor
we'll
you had to
see.
just lay there.
It was torture lying there on that table listening to them bicker. It was like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I think maybe they had just seen that or something and they were inspired by it. It was terrible. So you don't ever want to find that footage. Trust me.
Oh, it's funny because that's the cut. You'll see the cut there is kind of quick.
Thank God for that.
Like they just wanted to look at George because they started improvising and getting into the characters and just tell George, make them stop, it's going on forever.
It was brutal.
Bogging things down. So,
And thankfully, really, because there is lost footage, and it has stayed lost. And some of it, the things with Paula and the ghouls in the field, it's a shame that that's gone. But there are some things that really, truly is a blessing that they're gone.
Talk to anybody, they always point out that scene's the one that really would have.
Yeah, when you see that jump cut, just be thankful.
Yes.
I had a chance to ask this question at the last panel, and I don't know if anyone up there right now can address this. And I'm sure you can ask this question first time you're here, so I apologize for being repetitious. But I know that it was a financial decision to shoot this thing in black and white. But for me, black and white works. I think had this been shot in color, it wouldn't have had the same effect. And I was just wondering if anyone out there would like to respond to that.
Yes,
I agree.
totally.
100%. There are things that should be great in color, other things. Would you really want to see Casablanca look done in
Yeah, it's just Bosco chocolate syrup and blood. You get it kind of cut a lot of corners in black and white.
And it's delicious.
Yeah, they were like, people would say, like, we were amazed that people would eat raw meat covered in chocolate syrup, because it just doesn't, but people did. Good.
I have a couple comments. First, I met you several years ago, and I mentioned that even if you had a current state, it was your facial expressions, your body that just really sold me on how anxious and how terrified you were about the situation. And it puts me in perspective, like my brother is my absolute best friend. So to reflect, I would probably be in the same state, but even when you were still processing everything and you had real dialogue at the time, for a little bit, it was the facial expressions and everything that really sold it. So I applaud you on that, definitely. And then Kyra, I follow you on Instagram, and your photos that you post are just absolutely phenomenal. The deer and forestry behind your house is just absolutely beautiful. So it's obviously something that you practice on.
She's an artist.
All I have is a crappy phone. I don't have like a real camera. That's
It's just,
it's
I mean, it's just absolutely
Well, thank
phenomenal.
You're an artist.
That's
You're an
nice.
artist.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
My wife's right now wearing, she has, 20-some years travel 101. You're such a great silver.
Thank you.
It's been my experience with a lot of independent horror films. Seeing when you don't put it down the traditional Hollywood route, I see the hit by the rating system. A lot of stuff that normally flag them to either the X-rated or not at all. But for instance, the nude scene, for instance, the crime scene, say. So my question is did you guys, do you feel, and also being black and white, you might have seen before, but do you feel that helped the situation? Do you think that, or do you think you kind of skated by because of that? And, or were you flat? Was there certain parts? I know you said not much.
Well, before we get an opinion from,
Four ratings?
yeah, I was going to tell you the MPAA ratings, which was what we call gym tracks, because back then X meant adult and not porn. The MPAA ratings went into effect in November of 1968. The film was released in October, so it beat the rating system by about 4 weeks. So it helped that they didn't have to cut anything out because it beat the rating. Believe me, if it didn't beat the rating system, it wouldn't be the film you know today. So I know that for a fact. And we talked about it in the earlier thing, so it came up. But that's the real reason that stuff's in there. Because everything they shot made it in there, and they wanted to terrify it. It was a horror film. So I know that, just to that was the golden blessing, that it beat the ratings. So shot 67, edited, dragged around, and then finally, once it was released, it didn't have to go back and get rated. Beat it by less than a month.
I have a question for Tyra. When at the end, when you're eating your dad, I know they said that you were using like a lot of what you guys were eating for lunch. Did they tell you what you were supposed to be eating, or did they just say chow down?
Well, I didn't actually eat anything. I just held it up to my mouth and chewed. I didn't. Nothing went into my mouth, and they had put Bosco around my face to make it look like glitters on my face. But I was just. But it was somebody's. Literally, it was somebody's leftover lunch. It was a meatball sandwich that they just kind of smushed up and put Bosco on it, and I had that in my hands, but that did not actually go into my mouth. So, thank God.
Did they tell you that it was supposed to be like what it was supposed to be?
Oh yeah, I mean,
they
he
did.
was there in front of me. He had his arm behind his back, and then they made like a styrofoam stump and put some of that meatball stuff onto the stump to make it look, but you think about it. How long am I down there with him? Moments, right, before Marilyn comes downstairs. How good were my teeth that I could chew this man's arm up to his shoulder in 3 minutes? There's nothing left except a stump.
Suspension of disbelief.
There was an idea too, I know, that's thrown around where you bit, mom and dad walked up. Everyone was gonna get wiped out at one point in the movie, oh my God, they came from the basement and ate me, and then they just switched it a little bit to the really ironic ending where Ben, who never wanted to be there, escaped there and then got shot just by simply looking out the window at the wrong time.
It was my understanding, I didn't know this until a Q&A session with George, that Barbara was supposed to be the last person alive. There was going to be a close-up of the tears coming down her eyes. But
Everyone's gonna die and you were gonna be
I was going to be left. But I cannot fathom Night of the Living Dead ending that way. No, it just wouldn't be.
Yeah, well, like they revisited it in kind of Night of the Living Dead 90, where they did make Barbara a little stronger character. But originally she started out, and then they must have obviously loved her performance as much as we did. So it is what it is. So, does anyone else have something? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, you mentioned in the last panel about the capacity of only 4 minutes of film at a time.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You said on the previous panel, with 4 minutes of capacity of film at a time.
At 400 feet.
400 feet.
Usually a reel of film is about 1,000 feet, but because of the bag they had to put it in some of the angles, and sometimes they had to put it in a bubble to get, so they could only use. Gary talked about it because he loaded the camera down, that they just purposely bought 400-foot loads, is what they call them. So you had so many minutes, so you're hoping all the dialogue fits.
That was my question.
Yeah, what you do is you time those scenes so the dialogue fits between. I've worked on many segments, so you time them. There's guys who have made movies on short ends, which are literally anywhere between 20 seconds and 90 seconds, and they've made entire movies trying to fit dialogue in between nothing, because you get 400 feet and get 60 feet left over, and then you can buy that up. And that load is only 60 feet. You're like, how much do we got? Just get a reaction shot. So there's guys who've made entire movies.
But how do you handle the television, watching, the news, the acting?
That was shot on a different soundstage.
Yeah, obviously.
The answer is that.
But I mean, the acting process.
Right. Well, yeah. That was shot on a different sound. But I'm not in the film, so does anyone have a question? I can. If you want to talk about how to make things, we'll get up after this. For my panel, I'm not on the panel. I'm moderating the panel. Yes, my dear.
So, when you've seen this movie with audiences, like at the premiere and other times, is there anything that surprised you about the audience reaction to the movie?
There's something that always bothers me when I see it, and that is when Ben punches Barbara. That it bothers me because the audience always reacts with a cheer, like yay, he hit the woman. And that really bothers me. I mean, I know that I know that it bothered him a lot. And I mean, yeah, we know that she's being like a little hysterical, but I think that it, without like getting too, yeah, well, not even political, but I just think that it just kind of speaks to our culture. It just bothers me to see a man hit a woman and then be cheered for it. So that's just the thing. That's the main thing about the movie that bothers me.
Get her, calm her down and get her, but yeah, it's
Like
not
get
a
her
cheer.
a cup of tea or something.
It's not a cheer. But and then by the same token, it's sensitive. He brings the shoes. He did, it worked out great.
Yeah,
because,
but that's like the abuser and then saying I'm
and
sorry.
then saying I'm sorry,
Yeah,
which
I'm
is
sorry.
justified. And I understand exactly where you're coming from. That we got time. One more from anybody? Okay, we're going on a fast hour here, but I just wanted to wrap things up. I just wanted to ask our panel that, we know the film broke ground in all kinds of ways. The ghouls, they ate people for the first time on film. It was the first time they figured out, well, how do we kill him? We destroy the brain. The leading man was a black actor in the 60s, which had nothing to do with anything, but so many people saw. Just on and on and on. Now, my question to you is, at any time making this film, did any of you think we'd be sitting here 50 years later talking about what turned into one of the most influential horror films ever made?
Are you ready? No!
I was 19, and I wasn't even thinking 50 years down the line as to where I was going to be, much less this movie. And I was having much too good of a time to worry about something like that. But I don't think it's done. I think it's going to continue for a long time, perhaps longer than I'm going to be here to enjoy it. But I think that's amazing.
If you ask Jack Russo that very question, he'll say, "Oh, I knew right from the beginning."
You know Jack.
I think he was the only one then.
But I think it's so funny because time and time again, 31 shows in a row, we've had so many people up here, actors that have busted their butt and they're known for one role. Now, all of you, had some acting, did this, did that, but here's a little shoestring film where now here 50 years later, everybody knows you. That, to me, that's simply amazing. And to sit here in a room, it's over 200 chairs, it's practically full. It says something for what happened, and and what the film is to everybody else. And again, the Wasteland fans are always the best. They're just, they're quiet, supportive, and thank you guys. So, let's give that remember tonight we do have Night of the Living Dead on actual film, and Night of the Living Dead was obviously inspired by I Am Legend, and we have Richard Matheson's Last Man on Earth, and Night of the Living Dead is a double feature on the film, and yes, I did put that together on purpose, so come on in and check it out, because we're the last show to show you film, so once again, I'd love to thank our guests, and above all, I'd like to thank Wasteland fans. People really do want to